Okay, good people, another beautiful winter day here in Seville, early in the morning, all right? We're gonna do something different today. I've learned how to intersplice other YouTube videos into my videos, so I'm gonna try that out today. Let's see how it goes. I'm very proud of myself. So this is gonna be more of like a discussion than anything. I'm not gonna focus on any particular book, okay? The other day I saw a couple of tweets the other day, by I mean late January 2025, that touched on the age-old argument of whether writers should be paid. I'm not talking about screenwriters here. I'm talking about more literary writers, okay? The first tweet came from a guy named Alex Perez. Alex Perez is a very interesting character. He's kind of notorious for being a literary provocateur on Twitter, but he's also an excellent writer. He wrote a story called Freedom in a small literary journal called the Adroit Journal in 2020, and it's really excellent. You should check that out. And he also does a kind of daily list of cultural readings, the best cultural readings of the day for Real Clear Books and Culture, which is part of Real Clear Media or something like that. He wrote the following, okay? He tweeted the following: I think writers should always get paid, even if you're just publishing at one of those flash fiction joints. Ask the editors if they can spare a quarter or something for your 87-word story. So you can see, the dig in there, right? Now, responding to this tweet, okay, although not directly, because that's not the way these guys work, came from a guy named Aaron Birch, who is a writer himself. He wrote a novel called Year of the Buffalo. I've heard very good things about it, in a couple of collections of essays. One of them is called How to Write a Novel, which is a collection of craft essays, although he never mentions writing in it. That's one of the sort of gimmicks of it. And he's very well loved. He's a real curator of literature. And there was a kind of falling out between Alex Perez and Aaron Birch because of an interview that Alex Perez gave to Hobart. Look, I did a whole video on this, but just to sum things up quickly, Alex Perez was interviewed by Elizabeth Ellen, who is the former romantic partner of Aaron Birch, okay? And in this interview that Elizabeth Ellen gave to Alex Perez kind of took the literary world to task for its, let's say, social virtue signaling kind of schoolmarmish point of view about what makes literature edifying and worthwhile, which kind of discounts a big part of the reading public and the writing public, specifically those who don't buy into victim culture. And by victim culture, I mean the kind of idea that anyone who comes from an oppressed people or once oppressed people is just automatically better and more interesting. All right? Anyway, after this interview that he gave, there was this mutiny at Hobart, which is what Aaron Birch founded, okay? All these editors just wanted their work taken down. Aaron Birch left, started this new magazine called Had, or dedicated more time to it, took on all the pieces that the writers didn't want to be on Hobart anymore because they felt, in protest to what Alex Perez had said, he published it on Had. So there's a kind of schism at that particular point. This was in 2020. All right, so anyway, Aaron Birch's tweet is the following: whenever I see a writer arguing that every publication should pay, it seems to come from a writer I don't really want to read. Okay, another dig, okay? But, there is a kind of looking past the digs, looking past the attempt to be provocative, looking past the attempt to slight the other, there's an interesting interview here, an interesting point here, like what exactly should literary writers get paid for? When should we demand economic remuneration for what we do? So I figured I'd tell this story, which I think distinguishes it a bit. A few years ago, I saw that there was a travel magazine out there called Roads and Kingdoms, which was curated, or once curated, by Anthony Bourdain. Anthony Bourdain is that sort of celebrity chef, writer, world traveler who sadly committed suicide in 2018. I saw that this online magazine did a kind of series on wonderful places to have breakfast around the world. I live in Seville, and I used to live in this neighborhood that had this wonderful place to have breakfast. It was called Cerveceria Antonio Espoolaina, and cerveceria means beer hall, but that's not what it was. I mean, it could be that. It was that sometimes, but it was also a great place to have breakfast. It's run by Antonio, the bar guy, and Charo, his wife. The kitchen of the place is the same kitchen as their house. They live behind. They have 2 kids, 2 girls. One became a teacher, one became a nurse, and they come back on the weekends to wait tables. The family comes in on Sundays. It's just this great, great place. Just, on Sundays, you'll have like families coming in to eat after Mass, and they'll also be at the slot machine, this prostitute playing the slot machine. Everyone's together, these old guys drinking, anise, this Down syndrome guy talking shit to the bartender. It's just this great place, okay? So I wrote like 700 words on that. There's certain things that call me to write about them, right? That spark my vocation, that lead me to a kind of self-discovery, right? There's a need to write about them, okay? I don't expect to be paid for these pieces, okay? There's another kind of remuneration that makes it worth it, right? I'm a writer by vocation. But I saw that Roads and Kingdoms paid $25 for pieces. So, I sent off my piece to Roads and Kingdoms. They got back to me. They said they really liked it, but, it wasn't the piece they were looking for. They wanted more of a conventional travel piece about, like how to get there from the airport, how to get there from the train station, what are the specialties, what's the menu, what are the prices, nearby monuments, all that stuff. They wanted me to do that. There's just no way I was going to do that. All right, that is a kind of tedious administrative task. I'm not going to do that for $25. I might do it for $250. So I said, no, either publish it as it is, or, find someone else to do that. And so, they never got back to me. So, that sort of, to me, distinguishes between the type of writing that I will only do unless I'm paid for it, and the type of writing that I'll do for free or for $25. The $25 doesn't really matter. Okay? We can't expect to be paid, I don't think, for the work we do for pure vocation. I don't think, for example, that Alex Perez got paid for his piece, Freedom, in the Adroit Journal. I mean, he should get paid for that in a perfect world, but I'm sure he wasn't. Okay, to go deeper into this subject on why and whether writers should get paid, let's listen to a guy named Harlan Ellison. Perhaps you know who he is. He was a very contentious but interesting guy. He wrote a lot for Hollywood, but he also wrote speculative fiction, short fiction, and novels. He didn't like to be called a science fiction writer. Very heterodox guy, iconoclastic, liked to get into his fans' faces. There was a documentary done on him in 2008 called Dreams with White Teeth. Harlan Ellison was born, I think, in 1934, and he died in 2018. So let's hear what he has to say on this subject.
They always want the writer to work for nothing. And the problem is that there's a goddamn many writers who have no idea that they're supposed to be paid every time they do something. They do it for nothing. Good, they're going to look at me. I'm going to be noticed. What? You tell me, are they any less the media whore than I? I think not. They just haven't, nobody's offered to buy their soul. I sell my soul, but at the highest rates. The highest rates. I don't take a piss without getting paid for it.
So you can see what an electrifying talker Harlan Ellison is, okay? He's right, in a way, right? I mean, if I had written that piece for Roads and Kingdoms, okay, a kind of type of piece that I despise, if I had written it, I would have been whoring myself, in a way, for attention. Now, what about that? Should we writers sometimes, or is it necessary for us writers sometimes to whore ourselves, to make a name? So let's see what Harlan Ellison has to say about that.
How dare you call me and want me to work for anything? Well, it would be good publicity. I said, lady, tell that to someone a little older than you who has just fallen off the turnip truck. There is no publicity value in my essay, my interview, being on your DVD. If you sell 2,000 of them, it'll be great. And what are people going to say? Ooh, I really like the way that guy gave that interview. I wonder if he's ever written a book. Let me go and buy it. There's no publicity value. The only value for me is if you put money in my hand. Cross my palm with silver. You can use my essay.
So yeah, he mentions in that a kind of interview essay, okay? Just to give you context, he's talking about an interview that he did that some small film company wanted to include on their DVD for free. But he keeps saying essay, as if he wants to speak about writing. He also talks about, you know, the much older guy than him who falls off the turnip truck. I think there he's referring to the idea that, for example, when he came of age, I think he died in 2018. He was born in 1934. Those are the dates. And he came of an age when, you know, there was still a market for short stories. You could make a living selling them, okay? And also the media outlets were more narrow, okay? The variety of them. Now they're much more dispersed. So if you got a piece published somewhere, okay, maybe that led people to your other work. All right? But that had changed when he did the documentary, and it's changed even more now. So let me tell you another story about that, about whether it's worth it to whore ourselves, okay, for kind of attention that might lead readers to the work that we wrote more vocationally, okay, for the love of it, let's say. So, as I say, I live in Seville, and, you know, I'm a bullfighting fan to a certain degree. I was more when I was younger and I didn't have a family, but it's very expensive. But anyway, I'm up on it, and I'm here. I know about the world, and I've got a connection at the Wall Street Journal. And so I saw that El Monumental, which is I think it might be the biggest bullfighting ring in the world, but it's certainly the biggest one in Mexico, was reopening after many years of being shut down because of animal rights activists and stuff like that. The New York Times had written a big piece about this. So I got in touch with my connection at the Wall Street Journal, and I wrote this, 700-word piece about, explaining what bullfighting is and tying it to this kind of timely moment. I put everything else aside, okay? And I wrote this 600, 700-word piece, hoping that it would get published, okay? Not knowing if I was going to get paid for it, really, okay? Sent it off. Okay, because what I wanted them to do was, I knew at the end of that piece at the Wall Street Journal, they would say that I had published a memoir, My Half Orange, A Story of Love and Language in Seville. I published that book in April of 2023. So I hope that those who read this article might be led to read my book, which was published by a small press. We'll get to that, okay? Anyway, I send it off to the Wall Street Journal, and they say, yeah, we'll publish it. You edited it a bit. It got out there. Okay? Turned out that I received $300 for that. Okay? And it got, I mean, more than anything else that I've written in English, it reached far more people. It created, you know, I don't know, something like 90 comments, which really isn't that even that much for the Wall Street Journal, but it got people talking. People reached out to me, okay? Now, is that work that I would normally do? I wouldn't normally write that essay. It's an op-ed essay, right? It has to have a very specific point. It can't end ambiguously. It has to be kind of easy to consume. It has to be easy to dislike or disagree with or agree with, right? That's not the type of writing that I really like to write. But I was willing to do it, even for free, hoping that that would get people to my book or to my memoir. Did it get people to my memoir? I have no idea. But I was willing to do that. That's something that I would like to know. How many books that piece sold? How many books it sold? I would like to know that. I wish my editor could provide that for me. Okay, let's listen to Harlan Ellison again as he goes further on this rant.
I said, by what right would you call me and ask me to work for nothing? Do you get a paycheck? Well, yes. I says, does your boss get a paycheck? Do you pay the telecine guy? Do you pay the cameraman? Do you pay the cutters? Do you pay the teamsters when they schlep your stuff on the trucks? Then how don't you pay US? How would you go to a gas station and ask them to give you free gas? Would you go to the doctor and have them take out your spleen for nothing?
So yes, if you're doing a demanding task, okay, that you wouldn't do for the fun of it, or for the, let's say, self-contemplative benefits of it, then you should get paid. Either with eyes, attention, or with money. Okay? But check out what Ellison says here.
I get so angry about this because you're undercut by all the amateurs. It's the amateurs who make it tough for the professionals. Because when you act professional, these people are so used to getting it for nothing.
So do amateurs undercut professionals? Yes. There's no way around it. They absolutely do. Okay? There's really no way that an amateur can become a professional unless they kind of undercut the professionals. Let me tell you a story about this. Okay? So between the years of 2009 and 2013, I wrote a column, a weekly column, for free for Diario de Sevilla, which is Seville's daily paper. It was called La Sevilla del Guiri. Basically the foreigner's Seville. All right? Every Saturday it was published. They gave me no direction on it. They never cut anything. They said I could write whatever I wanted to write about. And on top of that, okay, they put the article on the front page of the digital edition with art, with an illustration done by the excellent newspaper in-house newspaper illustrator, a guy named Daniel Rosell. So it got a lot of eyes on it. And when I wrote about something controversial, it really did go sort of viral. Once I wrote a piece called Prohibidos Paraguayos, which means Paraguayos not allowed, about this park that was in front of my house, where, you know, the local authorities came down on all these Paraguayos who would come to play volleyball and have their picnics and play their music. It was completely unfair. And some news service in Paraguay picked it up, and it just went absolutely viral over there. Much more so than the piece I did in the Wall Street Journal. Okay, so I knew I was going to get eyes on it. All right? Now, the only thing that the paper ever cut from one of my articles was a paragraph describing or saying or explaining that the newspaper didn't pay me, but I was writing it for these reasons anyway. Okay, so the newspaper cut that. Okay, but I figured I consider that kind of a minor victory because I saw that they were kind of shamed. Okay, anyway, those 100 columns that I wrote for Diario Sevilla, in Seville, in Spanish, okay, turned into a book. Okay, a memoir called Que Pinto Yo Aquí, published in 2014 by this really excellent independent press here in Andalusia, in Almeria, okay? And, you know, for that book, I was interviewed for the radio, I got interviews in newspapers, I got on television, all right? And it ultimately got me a job, a paying job at the local radio station. A job that I still have, that pays basically half my salary, okay? What I need to raise a family here in Seville. Okay, so I know that I was getting more reads than many of the professional journalists at this paper, the professional columnists at this paper. I wasn't getting paid. I know that pissed them off. I know that I was undercutting them. But I don't care. I didn't care. I still don't care. It was the only way that I could get eyes on me, to get a book published, and then ultimately to get paid for my content or my intellectual content. Okay? You absolutely have to undercut the professionals as an amateur to become a professional, unless you want to sort of plod along, do everything you're supposed to do, and wait for someone to give you the nod to have a chance. I don't think that world really exists anymore. I really don't. I think you gotta undercut the professionals. Okay, now let's look at this last clip by Harlan Ellison, basically saying how the artistic or editorial direction always wants our work for free, and how hypocritical that is.
They want everything for nothing. They wouldn't go for 5 seconds without being paid, and they'll bitch about how much they're paid and want more.
Okay, so is that true? Is that true, really? Not in my experience. Again, I haven't worked in Hollywood. Okay, but in the literary world, is that true? Again, another story. All right, so this book, Que Pinto Yo Aquí, in Spanish, I translated it to my native language, English, and worked very hard to get it published in the States. And finally, it was picked up by a small independent press in Chicago called Tortoise Books. All right? My Half Orange, A Story of Love and Language in Seville. Now, the editor, Jerry Brennan, basically does almost everything himself. Okay? It's a small operation, more or less a one-man operation. He's got some people helping him, as I'll get to. Okay? But so we picked up the book, read it once, gave me some editorial advice on how to improve it. I followed that advice. Okay? He read it again, accepted it, and then put an editor with me. Okay? Who went line by line over this manuscript with me. She was a very good editor in the sense that she knew where the prose was flabby, and she could indicate that to me. So thanks to her, I really improved the book on a sentence by sentence level, which means a lot to me. Okay? So, now, all this was done by them free of charge. Free of charge, they were going to get my book, or the intellectual rights to my book. But we're talking editorial advice. If I had paid for that advice, okay, it would be probably, I'm going to go conservative on this, it would be at least $4,000. Okay, to get the kind of editorial work, probably $5,000. Okay, again, I'm being conservative about what it would cost to get that work done. So I got that work done. And then on top of that, you've got, for example, cover design, which they did for me. Okay, the book design, they also integrated illustrations. They did a very good job with that. Editorial-wise, they did an excellent job, Tortoise Books. No complaints at all. Fantastic job. Then there's the ISBN number they have to pay for. They have to upload it to all the platforms. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all of them. They've got to do that, all right? They've got to get a printer. They've got to get a distributor. It's got to be there, all right? All that stuff is expensive. That's all paid for by them, okay? Okay, again, let's be conservative. What did that cost in time and money for them? Okay, probably $10,000. Probably $10,000. So they're putting all that money down on my book to prepare it for publication, and then they publish it. Okay, what was my advance for the book? $250. $250. That was my advance. Sounds measly. It is measly. But look at all the work and money they put into my book without earning a dime on it, or knowing if they're going to earn a dime on it. Okay, now, again, I'm being honest with you. How many books did it sell? Has it sold since it came out in April 2022? All right? Tortoise Books doesn't have a publicity department. They've got no publicity machine. That's only up to the author. Okay? So I'm behind it. I'm trying to push it. As long as I'm alive, the book's going to be alive, right? But nothing. No articles, nothing. I don't live in the States. I can't really do anything about it. So, it sold under 500 copies. Under 500 copies. Now, how much money then do they get for that? How much money does Tortoise Books get for that? Okay, publishers get between, like, I think they get about 30% of a book that's sold, okay, through these platforms in a bookstore. Okay, so let's say they sold 500 copies, all right? $18 a copy times 500. I think that's around like $9,000. Okay, 30% of 9,000, I think, is 2,700. So that's what they earned on my book. They lost money on my book. Well, not money, because a lot of this was put in probably by them voluntarily. Okay, so look, and what if they did pay for a sort of a publicist? You know what a publicist costs? If you're a writer, to hire a publicist for 6 months or a year, a good one, $10,000, $15,000 for a good one who's got real connections. Okay, Tortoise Books doesn't have the budget for that. Okay, but are they trying to take advantage of me? Are they, okay, being hypocritical by asking me to give them the intellectual rights for my book for $250, basically nothing? Are they being hypocritical? No, they're doing their work with the same vocational sort of passion as I am. So I cannot, take them to task, okay? I can't take them to task. If you're in the literary world, okay, you're basically nowadays doing this, okay, for vocation, for those 500 readers. Okay, to me, I'm happy with that. 500 readers, someone gave me 500 likes on a tweet or a Facebook post, I'd be happy. I'm psyched for 500 copies of a book being sold. I'm happy for that. That is a satisfaction to me. Okay, a few final words about where I think literary writers do have to be careful about where they put their money. Okay? I would say never pay to submit something, ever. Don't even pay the $3 to Submittable. Okay? A real, true literary magazine, okay, is being done for, again, for the love of it, for vocation. Okay? There's ways around sort of the administrative hassle of taking submissions all year round. The best literary magazines have short windows, okay, where they say for a month or for a couple weeks, we're taking submissions, and then they shut it down again. I think that's the absolute best way to do it, okay? The literary magazines that you like and that you read, you follow them. You find out when their windows are open, and you get ready, and you send off the stuff then. You shouldn't have to pay. You shouldn't have to pay $3. And definitely don't pay $20 contest fees to get your manuscript read for a contest. Absolutely unwise to do that. Absolutely unwise. Because you know what? Just think about what I just said. You're paying them $20. Okay? That's basically the price of your book. Okay? So the publishing house is basically earning 3 times what they would earn for selling a book for $20, right? Because they're only earning 30%. Okay? So all the people who are sending in manuscripts for that contest are sending $20, all right? They're not going to sell more of the contest winner probably than people who solicited or applied or sent manuscripts in for the contest. So they have absolutely no need to sell your book once it's published, okay, to make any money. All right? And it's one out of so many. You don't know what their sort of political agenda is. You don't know. All right, again, which leads me to another thing. I would avoid sending to university presses because there's a kind of rolling group of readers. They're interns or they're MFA students, okay? The best literary magazines and the best literary publishing houses are run by one or two people who have very specific literary tastes. Okay? You want to know what those tastes are so that you can reach out to them, sincerely interested in them as people. Okay? That's ultimately how I got published by Tortoise Books. I was interested in Jerry Brennan, the editor. He's a good writer himself. I read his stuff before I sent stuff in. Okay? I'm stunned, even on this meager channel, how people sometimes reach out to me with their books, wanting me to review their books. Okay? And they don't mention really anything that I've written. Okay? They haven't read anything I've written. Okay? Again, am I talking about something that touches on my ego? Of course, but everyone's got an ego. Obviously, I'm going to be that much more interested in someone's book if they've already read mine. Right? That's the way it works in this business, man. Everyone wants to be read. I'm sure it was kind of like gratifying to Jerry to know that I read his work and appreciated it before I sent my work off to him. Okay? It really is, it's an investment of time, not money, to get your work published. Well, to get your work noticed. Okay? It is an investment of money too, because very often you have to pay for editors before you can get your work looked at, where it's at the condition where an editor is willing to spend time seeing if it's good or bad, worthy of publication or not. You gotta get it in the best possible shape, okay? Or they're just not gonna dedicate the time to your work. I mean, yeah, it's almost like nowadays, if you're gonna do this thing where you're writing literary work, you have to pay for it like you would pay for any kind of hobby, right? If you're into like motorcycle riding or into cycling, well, you're spending a lot of money on that hobby. Okay, it might even be like a vocation for you. All right, well, this is my hobby, it's my vocation. I'm gonna spend money on what diverts me. And if what diverts me is improving my literary work, well, I'm gonna pay people I trust to give me the advice I need to improve it. I'm not gonna count on friends to do this. Okay, so yeah, I mean, it's a tough world out there, man. Don't get into this if you want to make money. I mean, you might, just like some people might win the lottery, but yeah, anyway, thanks for listening. This was an experiment. It's long too, but anyway, if you got to here, I give you an award. That award from my heart. Enjoy the day, people, wherever you are.